All right, buckle up everyone, because today we're diving deep into the world of the Maya. You guys know, you requested it, we gotta deliver.
Always exciting to unpack the mysteries of this civilization.
It really is. Pyramids, calendars, glyphs, all that good stuff. But you guys already know the basics.
Of course. Our listeners are pretty savvy.
Exactly, so we're going deeper. We want to figure out the why behind the what.
The how and the why, that's where the real story lies.
Totally. And just to kind of set the stage, the Maya weren't some ancient civilization frozen in time.
Oh, absolutely not. Their legacy is alive and well. Over 30 Mayan languages are still spoken today.
Right. It's wild. It's a real testament to how impactful their culture was. But how did they get there? I mean, they started as just small farming communities.
What? Yeah, that's the fascinating part. Around 1000 to 1200 BC, they were living in these small, scattered communities, basically farmers. But then, fast forward to about 200 AD, things changed dramatically. Boom, these large, bustling cities appear.
That's a pretty major shift. What happened?
Well, it was a gradual process, for sure. But it took some serious innovation. To support a larger population, they needed to up their agriculture game, produce more food. Then there's the architecture. Those monumental buildings, those didn't just pop up overnight. And of course, as society got more complex, they needed new ways to govern, new social structures.
I mean, that's mind-blowing. They achieved so much. But were they a unified empire like, say, the Romans? Or was it something else?
Good question. They weren't a single empire, more like independent city-states. Each one had its own ruler, its own agenda. Think of it like ancient Greece. Shared culture, shared heritage, but often at each other's throats.
So lots of political drama.
Yeah.
Just as much a part of their lives as, the rituals and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of elaborate, let's talk about those glyphs. They're like these intricate puzzles waiting to be solved.
I know, and they're not just pretty pictures, right? They actually tell us stories.
The Maya were amazing storytellers, and their writing system reflects that. Those glyphs carved into stone or painted on pottery, they tell us so much. Historical events, genealogies, religious beliefs. They even recorded detailed astronomical observations.
It's like getting a peek into their minds, their lives. Incredible.
Yeah, and deciphering those glyphs has been a game changer. It's like unlocking a secret code. It's given us so much insight into their history, their rituals, their political dramas, even how they saw the cosmos. I mean, just recently, scholars have been able to decipher glyphs that reveal the intricate relationships between different city-states, alliances, betrayals, wars, the whole 9 yards.
It sounds like something out of a history thriller.
Hmm.
And speaking of drama and scale, Tikal was a major player, right?
Oh yeah, Tikal was a powerhouse, a true jungle metropolis. At its peak, the population was over 60,000, one of the largest cities in the ancient Americas. Imagine this bustling city, thriving in the middle of the rainforest, with these massive pyramids reaching for the sky.
I get chills just thinking about it.
Uh,
But Tikal wasn't all sunshine and roses, right? They had some serious rivals.
For sure. They were constantly battling with other powerful cities like Calakmul and Karakol. It was all about dominance, control over resources. The competition was fierce.
It reminds me of modern geopolitics, in a way. It's not just about who has the most impressive buildings or the fanciest rituals. It's about strategic alliances, backstabbing, and that constant struggle for power. It seems like a recurring theme throughout history, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
And speaking of power struggles, it gets even more interesting when we consider Tikal's connection to Teotihuacan way over in present-day Mexico.
Right, I've heard about that. What's the deal there? Were they conquered or was it something else?
That's the million-dollar question. There's this monument at Tikal, Stela 31, and the imagery on it suggests a close relationship between the two cities. Some scholars believe Tikal was conquered by Teotihuacan, while others think it was more of an alliance, maybe even a cultural exchange. Whatever happened, it clearly had a big impact on Tikal's culture and politics. The mystery just adds to the intrigue, right?
Totally. Keep things interesting. Okay, switching gears a bit. The Mesoamerican ball game. It wasn't just a sport, right? It was a pretty big deal for the Maya.
Huge deal. It was deeply embedded in their ritual and cosmology. This game was played for centuries across the region. Imagine a massive court, players trying to get this heavy rubber ball through a stone hoop way up high. The rules were complex, physically demanding, and the stakes were high. I mean, we're talking life or death here, potentially even the fate of the city.
Wow. So it was more than just a game then. What did it represent to them? What was the deeper meaning?
Well, it's layered. Scholars believe it was connected to the sun and moon, the underworld, sacrifice, that whole cycle of life and death. There's this sacred Mayan text, the Popol Vuh, and it describes a ball game between the hero twins and the lords of the underworld. This epic battle between good and evil, light and darkness. These themes were probably woven into every aspect of the ball game, making it a super powerful ritual performance.
It's amazing how they infuse their daily lives with so much meaning and symbolism. And beyond the ball game, their understanding of time and astronomy was seriously advanced. Let's talk about those Mayan calendars. They're more complex than just tracking seasons, right?
Oh, yeah, way more. They developed a dual calendar system, which is a testament to their intellectual prowess. There's the 260-day ritual calendar, known as the Tzolk'in. It was used for divination, figuring out auspicious dates for ceremonies and events. And then you've got the 365-day solar calendar, the Hab. This one tracked the agricultural cycles and seasons.
So it was like having two clocks running at the same time, one for their spiritual lives and one for their practical day-to-day lives. And it gets even more complex with the 52-year calendar round, right?
Exactly. Every 52 years, the two calendars, the Tzolk'in and the Hab, they aligned. This was a big deal, marked by tons of rituals and ceremonies. It was a time of renewal. This whole concept of cyclical time, where the past, present, and future are all connected, was deeply ingrained in the Maya worldview. They believed history repeated itself in these predictable patterns. And understanding these cycles was key to understanding the universe and your place in it.
That's so different from our linear view of time, isn't it? It really makes you think. But we can't forget their math skills. I mean, the concept of zero, that was revolutionary.
No doubt, their number system was super sophisticated, and the concept of zero, well, that was a game changer. It allowed them to do all sorts of advanced calculations, centuries before Europe, mind you. Think about it, the idea of nothingness as a mathematical value, that's a pretty profound concept. It speaks volumes about how advanced their thinking was.
It's mind-blowing. Okay, we got to talk about Palenque and its most famous ruler, Pakal the Great. His tomb, the Temple of the Inscriptions, it's legendary.
Palenque is amazing. And Pakal, he ruled for a whopping 68 years. He left his mark on the city, that's for sure. He was behind a lot of ambitious building projects, including the Temple of the Inscriptions, his final resting place. The inscriptions found in this temple have been crucial for understanding Mayan history. They give us a glimpse into Pakal's reign, the political scene, religious life, even their views on the afterlife.
It's like Pakal himself is giving us a tour of Mayan history. Okay, time to address the elephant in the room, the so-called Maya collapse. What actually happened? Did they just vanish?
The term collapse is a bit misleading. It wasn't like they all just disappeared off the face of the earth. It was more of an adaptation, a transformation.
Okay, so less of a sudden crash and more of a shift, maybe.
Exactly. So yeah, the major cities in the southern lowlands, they did decline around 800, 900 AD. But the Maya people themselves, they didn't just vanish. Cities in the northern Yucatan, like Chichen Itza, continued to flourish. They adapted and found new ways to thrive.
So what happened in the south? Was there one big catastrophe or was it more complicated than that?
It was probably a combination of things. Picture this, a changing climate with droughts becoming more frequent and severe.
It would definitely impact their agriculture, right? And their ability to support those large populations.
For sure. And then you've got deforestation. As they cleared land for farming and building, the soil became less fertile. So in a way, their success contributed to their environmental problems.
That's a sobering thought. It reminds us that even advanced societies need to think about their impact on the environment.
Absolutely. Sustainability is key. But it wasn't just about the environment. You've also got social and political factors to consider. As the population grew and resources became scarcer, the competition between those city-states intensified. Those rivalries we talked about earlier, well, they probably became even more heated.
So it was a recipe for disaster, a perfect storm almost.
You could say that. But even in the midst of all this turmoil, you see that Maya spirit of resilience shining through. They didn't give up, they adapted, they migrated, they found new ways to survive and even thrive. Their story didn't end, it transformed.
And that brings us to Chichen Itza. This city in the northern Yucatan, it thrived while the southern lowlands were going through those hard times. What makes Chichen Itza so unique?
Well, it's a great example of the Maya's ability to adapt and incorporate new influences. They didn't just cling to the old ways, they were open to change.
It was a blend of the old and the new, a fusion of different cultures.
Exactly. And it really showcases their dynamism and resilience. They faced a lot of challenges, but they never lost their creativity and their ability to innovate.
It's inspiring, really. But we got to talk about those cenotes. They weren't just sinkholes, right? They held a lot of spiritual significance for the Maya.
You got it. Cenotes were essential to their lives, both practically and spiritually. They were a source of fresh water, which was super important in a region where surface water was scarce. But they were also seen as sacred spaces, portals to the underworld, Xibalba, a place of death and rebirth.
So they were literally and metaphorically deep, essential for survival and deeply connected to their beliefs about the cosmos.
Exactly, and one cenote in particular stands out, the Cenote Sagrado at Chichen Itza, also known as the Sacred Cenote.
What's so special about this one?
Well, it was more than just a source of water. It was a place of ritual and ceremony, a direct link to the underworld. They performed all sorts of rituals and offerings there to appease the gods and keep the cosmos in balance.
It's fascinating, but also a bit eerie. What kind of offerings did they make?
Archaeologists have found all sorts of things in the Cenote Sagrado: gold, jade, pottery, textiles, even human remains.
Whoa, human remains. That's intense. It definitely gives us a different perspective on their beliefs about sacrifice and the afterlife.
It does. It's a reminder that their worldview wasn't all light and beauty. There was a dark side, a deep respect for the powers of the underworld.
It's a good reminder to approach history with humility, isn't it? To try to understand their beliefs within their own cultural context.
Definitely. And it's important to remember that the Maya legacy isn't just about the past, it's very much alive today.
Right, the Maya people are still here. Their languages, their traditions, their culture.
It's a powerful testament to their resilience. They faced so many challenges, but their culture survived and adapted.
It's really inspiring. It shows that even after centuries, their story continues to unfold. We've covered so much in this deep dive. I feel like we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
There's always more to learn, more to explore. The Maya were a complex and fascinating civilization, and their story continues to captivate us today.
It's been an incredible journey so far. But for now, we need to take a break.
Don't worry, we'll be back soon to continue our exploration of the Maya world.
Stay tuned, folks. There's much more to come. Welcome back to our Maya Deep Dive. We've talked about a lot already. Their beginnings, those incredible cities like Tikal, those amazing rituals and games.
Yeah.
What else? Oh yeah, their crazy understanding of time and numbers. And we can't forget those glyphs, right? Those glyphs that actually tell stories.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride so far. But remember how we touched on the so-called collapse? That whole idea that they just up and vanished? Well, we kind of busted that myth.
It wasn't so much a sudden collapse, but more like a what? Like a transformation, a shift in power.
Yeah.
But let's rewind a bit. We talked about those challenges they face in the southern lowlands. It was a whole bunch of stuff hitting them at once, right? Perfect storm kind of thing.
It was. And a changing climate was a big part of that. Imagine droughts getting worse and worse, happening more often. What happens? Well, their agriculture takes a hit. Big time.
Right. Crops failing. That's going to cause some serious problems. Food shortages, instability, maybe even fighting over what's left.
Exactly. And on top of that, they were dealing with the after effects of deforestation. They cleared land for farming, yeah. But also to build those massive cities, all that wood, it had to come from somewhere.
So they're cutting down trees left and right. What happens? The soil gets depleted, not as good for growing stuff anymore. It's like there's success, all that building and expanding, maybe it backfired on them. It's kind of a cautionary tale, isn't it?
It is. It reminds us to think about the long-term consequences of our actions, to find that balance. But anyway, it wasn't just the environment that was causing problems. They also had social and political stuff going on. A growing population, resources getting scarce, and all those city-states, they're competing with each other. It's a recipe for tension, right?
So all those rivalries we talked about, they're heating up. And it's not just about prestige anymore. It's about survival. I mean, things must have gotten pretty intense.
They did. Think about it. In times of crisis, things change fast. Alliances shift, old enemies clash, and those systems that kept everything running smoothly, they start to break down. All that governance, trade, tribute. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck.
Wow. And in the middle of all this, the rulers, they're losing control. The political landscape is fragmenting.
Exactly. But here's the amazing thing. The Maya, they didn't just give up. They showed resilience. They adapted, moved, found new ways to not just survive, but actually thrive. Their story didn't end there. It took a new direction.
And that's what makes them so remarkable. It wasn't about the challenges they faced, but how they responded to them. So let's move on to Chichen Itza. This city in the northern Yucatan, it was doing pretty well while the south was struggling. What was going on there?
Chichen Itza is like a case study in adaptation. They took what they knew and blended it with new influences, creating something totally unique. This was during the post-classic period, a time of big migrations and power shifts all over Mesoamerica.
So what was happening in the bigger picture? What were these new forces that were changing things up?
Well, you had new groups like the Toltecs moving in. They brought their own culture, their own military skills, their own architectural styles, and they mixed with the existing Maya populations, leading to this really interesting period of cultural fusion.
So the Maya weren't just adapting to a changing environment, but also to the arrival of new people, new ideas, new ways of life.
Exactly. And Chichen Itza became like this central hub for all that cultural blending. It shows up in their architecture, art, religion, everywhere. You see Mayan traditions mixed with Toltec elements.
So give us some examples. How did this cultural fusion actually look?
Well, let's look at the Castillo Pyramid. We talked about its magnificence, its connection to the feathered serpent Kukulkan, remember? Well, that deity, Kukulkan, was important to the Maya, but also to the Toltecs.
So even the choice of who to honor in this massive pyramid shows that cultural blending?
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there. And then look at the architecture itself. You've got those sloping walls, those stepped pyramids, classic Maya. But then you've got columns, warrior statues flanking the entrances. That's more Toltec. It's like those two cultures are visually merging right before your eyes.
And it's not just the Castillo, right? Other structures tell the same story.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Great Ball Court, it's got those traditional Maya elements, but the architecture also hints at Toltec influence. Then you've got the Temple of the Warriors, with those rows of carved columns, all depicting Toltec warriors. Even the layout of the city, with those open plazas and grand walkways, that echoes Toltec urban planning.
So Chichen Itza was more than just a Maya city. It was like this cosmopolitan center, a place where different cultures came together, created something new and exciting.
Yeah.
It really shows that the Maya weren't isolated. They were connected to this wider network, and they were really good at taking those outside influences and making them their own.
It's a real testament to their adaptability. They weren't stuck in the past. They were open to new ideas, new technologies, new religions even.
It shows a real openness to the world around them. But let's shift gears again, back to those natural wonders, those cenotes.
Oh yeah, the cenotes. Can't forget about them. They're key to understanding the Maya, both practically and spiritually.
And that cenote sagrado at Chichen Itza, that was a pretty special place.
It was. The sacred cenote, it wasn't just a source of water. It was a portal to the underworld, to Xibalba. And the Maya, they believed that this underworld, with its powerful gods, it controlled everything. Life, death, rain, drought, the whole balance of the cosmos.
So it was a place of immense power, a place where they would go to seek favor from the gods, to appease them, to maybe even make deals with them.
Right. And those offerings they made, they weren't just symbolic gestures, they were serious business. They wanted to keep those underworld gods happy and make sure everything stayed in balance. And archaeologists have found some pretty incredible stuff in that cenote, things that give us a glimpse into those ancient rituals.
Like what? What kind of stuff did they find down there?
Imagine gold and jade artifacts, beautiful pottery, even textiles, all carefully placed in the cenote as gifts to the gods. They were sacrificing things of real value, things they held dear.
It's almost like you can hear the echoes of those ancient ceremonies, can't you? All those precious objects submerged in the water for centuries.
It's a powerful reminder of their beliefs, how far they were willing to go to maintain that connection with the cosmos.
And it shows that the Maya weren't just builders and mathematicians. They were deeply spiritual people, their beliefs woven into every aspect of their lives.
Exactly. The Cenote Sagrado, with all its beauty and mystery, it perfectly captures that connection between the physical and the spiritual in Mayan culture.
This has been such a fascinating journey. We've explored so much, but I still feel like we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn, more to uncover. The Maya story is a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the enduring power of culture.
And it's a story that continues to inspire us, challenge us, and make us rethink our own understanding of the past. But for now, we need to take a little break.
Don't worry, we'll be back soon to wrap up our Maya deep dive.
So stay tuned, everyone. We've got one more part to go. And we're back for our final exploration of the Maya. I gotta say, after these deep dives, I feel like I've traveled through time, walked those ancient cities, even taken a dip in those sacred cenotes. Pretty cool, huh?
It's been quite a journey. We've seen that the Maya were so much more than just pyramids and jungles.
We've uncovered those incredible achievements, their astronomy, their math, their art, and we've seen how they dealt with some tough challenges, environmental stuff, political upheavals, you name it.
But through it all, they showed incredible resilience, that ability to adapt, innovate, create beauty, even when things got rough.
It's inspiring. For sure. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what would you say are the biggest takeaways from the Maya story? What can we learn from them?
Well, I think the biggest thing to remember is that the Maya weren't just one big homogenous group. They were diverse, spread out over a huge area with different cultures, different histories, different ways of life. Even in the classic period, when those big cities in the South were booming, there was tons of variety. Their politics, their art, their religion, it wasn't all the same.
It's like we've been looking at this giant tapestry, woven from all these different threads, right? Each one telling its own story.
Exactly. And that tapestry, it's still being woven today. The Maya people are still here. Their languages, their traditions, their culture, it's all thriving. It's a reminder that history isn't just about the past. It's connected to the present and even the future.
A living legacy. It links us to those who came before us. It shows us that even ancient cultures have so much to teach us. And, another thing that's really stuck with me is the importance of perspective. We talked about this earlier, how we can't judge the Maya by our modern standards. We have to try to understand them on their own terms.
Absolutely. When we approach history with humility, with an open mind, it opens up so many doors. We start to see those connections, those patterns, those insights that we might have missed before. We see the things that connect all of us across time and cultures.
It's like we're expanding our own definition of what it means to be human. We're seeing all these different ways that people have made sense of the world.
And that's the power of history and archaeology, isn't it?
Yeah.
It pushes us to question our assumptions, broaden our horizons, and ultimately understand ourselves and our place in the world a little bit better.
So for our listeners who are hooked, who want to learn more about the Maya, what would you recommend? Where can they go from here?
Well, there's no shortage of resources. You've got books, documentaries, museums, archaeological sites all over Central America.
Yeah, actually being there, walking those ancient cities, it must be incredible.
It is. You can feel that connection to the past. And, I'd encourage everyone to go beyond just the facts and figures. Try to really connect with the Maya story on a personal level. Imagine living in those cities, taking part in those rituals, creating those incredible works of art. Try to see the world through their eyes.
Connect with the human side of history. See the people behind the stories, not just names and dates in a book.
Exactly. And when you do that, you might discover something new about yourself, about your own place in the world. You might see how resilient the human spirit really is, how we can adapt, overcome, and create, even when faced with tough times.
That's a perfect way to wrap things up. This deep dive has been a truly amazing experience. I'm walking away with a whole new appreciation for the Maya, their achievements, their resilience, their lasting impact on the world.
And that's the beauty of learning, isn't it? It's a journey. There's always more to discover.
So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into those mysteries of the past.
Because when we understand history, we understand ourselves better.
Until next time, stay curious and keep your minds open to the wonders of history.